Hello and welcome to this Philbert Flies review of ORBX's San Jose International Airport scenery for Microsoft Flight Simulator. Before you ask, yes I do, and that's why you're able to join me here on Final Approach to Runway 30 left. I'm starting with an approach, as always, to give you a look at the surrounding area and to let you gauge the performance of this scenery on my system, which is comprised of an i7-8700K processor with 32GB of RAM and a 1080 Ti graphics card. Now, San Jose is one of the default photogrammetry cities in this sim, and there is a performance impact associated with that. Nothing to do with ORBX's scenery, but I am getting a few stutters here and there on this short final. Now for me, that is a price worth paying for flying overhead a real-world city. It does look absolutely spectacular. Now I'm going to complete the approach and landing. I'll show you a little bit of the taxi-in, and I will speak to you again when we're parked up at a gate, and we'll have a good look around this scenery together in different weather and lighting conditions. See you shortly.
Hundred above. 300. Minimum. 200. 100. 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, retard, drive.
So here we are, welcome to San Jose. I hope you enjoyed the arrival. The airport looked fantastic to me on the approach and taxi in. We're parked up now at gate 13. We'll watch the jetway connect. It's a default jetway, but it looks very similar to the real world jetways at this airport. And then once it's connected, we'll begin our airport tour. We'll begin up here at the northwest end of the airport, near the runway 12 left threshold. And the first area we'll take a look at is this north cargo area. Now you'll see quite a good amount of airport clutter over here, which is representative of a cargo ramp, as well as some car parks just outside the boundary fence. We've got some fuel tankers parked up over here, so the airport does feel full of life. The passenger terminal here is split into A and B, but it's essentially one long building. So let's take a look at the modelling and texturing. Pretty nice modelling, quite a good level of detail with these air conditioning units on the roof and these light poles over here. You'll notice that we don't have any transparent glass at this airport, but we do have good reflective PBR textures in use. If we take a look up close at the building itself, you will notice that the textures are a little bit blurry. They're not as high resolution as I would have expected from ORBX. And that's also true for these roof textures. The jetways are fairly standard all the way along. They look pretty good. Except once in a while you'll come across one like this one here, which isn't actually connected to the terminal building at all. Now that's the sort of detail that you wouldn't necessarily come across in normal day-to-day usage of the airport, but it is something that I think shows a slight lack of attention to detail on the part of ORBX here, and it's disappointing. The resolution of the textures on the terminal buildings remains slightly lower than I would like throughout. But we do at least have reflective PBR glass. There are 3 static aircraft parked up at the main terminal, and for me that's just about right. I know statics are a contentious issue. Some people want none so that they have more possibilities to park at accurate gates, and so that there are plenty of gates for the AI aircraft to use. And some people want to see an aircraft that's populated as it would be in real life. But for me this strikes a happy balance. I'd still like to see the option to turn them on or off, and ideally have different levels of static aircraft available from the installer. Now this section of the terminal down here is an extension that I haven't been able to find on any satellite imagery, and nor have I been able to find any photos of it. To me, it looks a little bit odd with these jetways. You'll notice that they have their standard jetways, they have a staircase next to them, and they're attached very low down on the terminal building. Now, I don't know what the plan is in real life for this section. I've got to be honest, I'm not even certain whether or not it's open. On the charts it looks like it is, but as I say, in the satellite imagery it's yet to be built. So it could be that ORBX have just made a guess at what this extension was going to look like at the time this scenery was created. And on the one hand that's fair enough. On the other hand, I would probably prefer to see an accurate representation of the airport that's slightly out of date, and for them then to release an update when they have a good idea of what the terminal looks like in reality. We also have this issue with the jetways not properly being attached. I mean, there's no way, for example, a person could fit through that gap there. So again, a little bit slapdash if you ask me. On the opposite side of the runways, we have the FBO area. So we've got a couple of FBOs based here, along with their associated hangars. And the texturing and modelling along this side of things is very similar to that on the passenger terminal. It looks pretty good, but if you get up close you do notice those low resolution textures again. It's also worth noting that this ramp is completely devoid of any kind of life. Now Google satellite imagery shows a number of business jets parked up here. And for me that would be a really good use of static aircraft, because we're unlikely to see any business jets parking up here in any future AI traffic add-on or in the in-sim live traffic. That said, they have gone to a fair amount of effort to recreate this garden, which is a nice touch, and also some of the structures out the front, although we do still have the default satellite imagery on the ground here. More cars parked over here, which is nice to see, and we have a control tower, which is done to an acceptable standard. Again, no transparent glass, but we do at least have reflections. And sadly another couple of empty aprons just beyond it. By and large, the ground textures at this airport are really nicely done. You can see all these different colours that are present on the apron, which makes it look very, very realistic. The taxiway and stand centre lines are not too bright, not too faded, they look just about right. And the taxiway textures are very good as well. Again, we've got blemishes all the way around the airport, which make it feel like you're there. The textures in between the taxiways, this sort of brown dirt, are slightly low resolution, but they don't stand out too badly because they are relatively uniform. I think if there were different textures within this, it would look a lot worse than it does. The runways look pretty good as well, nice high resolution textures, and we have rubber marks all the way along. Now, having looked at the satellite imagery, this seems fairly true to life. I don't understand why some airports do have rubber marks all the way along and others only have rubber at the touchdown zones. If anyone knows the answer to this, I'd be really interested to hear in the comments. The night lighting at this airport is a mixed bag. The apron looks really good, bathed in light as it is from these floodlights up here. And the terminal interior from a distance also looks pretty good. However, it really does highlight the low resolution of the textures. And we have this weird sort of sepia tone coming from within, which doesn't really recreate the atmosphere of an airport terminal at night, in my opinion. On this part of the terminal, you'll notice some textures which are so low resolution that it almost feels like you've had too much to drink. I'm talking specifically about these little windows down here, which are really incredibly blurry. Now, if you're pulling up in an aircraft, that is the sort of thing you're going to notice, so I think it's worth pointing out, in spite of the fact that the overall effect is not too bad. The taxiways are well lit with centerline lights and edge lights, and the runways look pretty good as well. At first glance, the aprons to the southwest of the airport look pretty good. However, if you get in closer, you'll notice that while we have these really nice pools of light, we don't actually have any floodlights creating them. So if you're a business jet flyer, I imagine this is something that'll get on your nerves a little bit. It just looks a little bit odd. The landside area out the front of the main terminal actually looks very nice indeed at night. I really like the trouble they've gone to recreate this blue illumination on the car park. And the front of the terminal building's really nicely lit as well. Here is San Jose in the rain, and it looks as good as we've come to expect from any flight simulator scenery. Good reflections, and the ground textures hold up nicely under the water. Now, I know it doesn't really snow in San Jose. They have had some snow in higher ground around the airport, but I don't think it's ever snowed at the airport. Nonetheless, it's worth having a quick look because this is, after all, a simulator, and the climate is changing. So, I actually think they've done quite a good job here. You'll notice that the parking stands are not totally covered in snow. They've got little patches here and there. And the taxiways look pretty good as well, although there is no snow on the centre lines. The asphalt texture here doesn't seem to gather any snow at all, and I think that's probably a sim fault, as I've said before. But here you are, this is what you can expect if you ever do want to fly here in snowy conditions. As well as the airport itself, ORBX have modelled some points of interest around its perimeter, including this stadium, which is home to the San Jose Earthquakes soccer team, and this well, I'd call it a retail park. I don't know exactly what Americans call these things. But, you know, we have a number of superstores, and they are very nicely done, I must say. They are better than the default photogrammetry surrounding the airport, and yet they blend in rather nicely with it. There are other POIs, but they're beyond the scope of this review, so I'll let you explore them at your leisure if you choose to buy the airport. So what do I think of this add-on? Broadly speaking, I think it's quite good. It's very atmospheric, and on arrival it truly does feel like you're there, thanks to the exceptional ground textures, the airport clutter, the high standard of modelling, and the very convincing apron lighting. In my opinion, however, it's let down by some of the details. Jetways that aren't connected to the terminal building, blurry building textures, unrealistic terminal lighting, and missing floodlights on the southwestern ramps. The terminal extension, to me, doesn't look convincing at all, particularly those huge jetways that would more or less scrape along the ground in use. It's worth pointing out, however, that this airport is complemented by both the default photogrammetry scenery and the custom points of interest that ORBX have added. The approach over San Jose downtown is one of the most realistic I've ever flown, so I think it's worth taking that into account when deciding whether or not to buy this scenery. So there you have it, plenty to like, but quite a few areas for improvement as well. It's certainly not up there with the likes of ORBX Innsbruck or ORBX Gothenburg. If you like the idea of flying to San Jose, I don't think you'll be disappointed. But if you're looking for the best of the best, this isn't it. And that's it. I hope you found this review useful. If you have, please do click the thumbs up button down below and hit subscribe for more of this sort of thing. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon on Philbert Flies. Take care. Bye bye.